Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm your host, Dr. Haider Shah. On behalf of Calvas, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we have another very interesting topic, and I'm really honored to welcome and introduce our distinguished guest speaker who is going to talk about analyzing the data for qualitative research paper. Research journey is very interesting but yet full of challenges as well. We need to develop our capabilities, understanding, and competency for which we need to have the right guidance and appropriate strategies to follow and overcome the various challenges. So, indeed, a very interesting topic, and I'm sure in this session you are going to learn new amazing things because we have an expert with us in this session. So, stay tuned because an amazing stuff are coming ahead in this session. So, before we start, I would like to thank the Kalwas for arranging such enlightenment sessions, for their support, and for providing us such a wonderful platform. The aim of Calvas is to give you the opportunity to connect and interact with world renowned speakers, academic leaders, teachers, authors, researchers, experts, professionals, and businessmen to learn from their experiences, recommendations, and suggestions, which will create an impact and will enable you to learn and develop yourself in order to grow and transform individually as well as to contribute to the world in a positive way, as our slogan is come, learn, and share knowledge. So today we have an amazing person as a guest. He is a versatile person having wonderful experience and exposure, an internationally known and recognized speaker. We always see him on different platforms while contributing to the field and world. He is always ready to share his knowledge. So let me introduce him formally. He is a global ambassador of 21st Digital Skills, an editor, a poet, an advocate of inclusive and special education, a passionate researcher, a freelance writer, a leader, an educator, and a lecturer in the North Negros State College of Science and Technology in the Philippines. As an educator, he teaches physics, forensic chemistry, biochemistry, earth and environmental sciences, journal sciences, special and inclusive education, and professional teacher education subjects to college students. He is about to finish his Doctor of Philosophy in Instructional Leadership Education, specializing in General Science. He holds degree from of a Master of Arts in Education, specializing in General Science, and Bachelor of Secondary Education, specializing in Physical Science. Currently, he is the Editor-in-Chief of the International Research Journal of Science, Technology, Education, and Management. He published research in various prestigious journals is in the international arena, which are Index in Scopus, Web of Science, Emerging Source Citation Index, ASEAN Citation Index, and Commission on Higher Education recognized journal in Australia, Turkey, United Kingdom, Iraq, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Philippines. Moreover, he is the associate editor, managing editor, editorial advisory board member, and peer reviewer of international research journal in Greece, United Kingdom, Russia, Spain, Iraq, Mexico, Australia, Middle East, Vietnam, Indonesia, Italy, Ukraine, China, USA, Pakistan, Thailand, India, and Nigeria. He represented and completed research paper at national and international research conferences. As a passionate researcher, he devotes time as an advisor and panelist to the thesis oral presentation both in the undergraduate and graduate degree programs. At the same time, a resource speaker in the research forum in different academic institutions, both locally and internationally. He is a versatile person, having been elected or appointed in different key positions in academia and other academic organizations, such as the youngest elected president of the Faculty Association in the history of the institute, and the youngest elected vice president of the Confederation of Faculty Association of the State College and University of the Philippines. In Western visas, he served as a member of the Board of Trustees, the highest governing body of the academia during his college days, as a student trustee for 2 terms, and at present as a faculty trustee. In addition to that, a coordinator of the student organization activities, editor-in-chief of a graduates yearbook 2014, 2018, 2019, member of the student handbook editorial board, Human Resource Merit Promotion and Selection Board, Committee of Decorum and Investigation, Board of Finance Committee, Performance Management Team, Personnel Development Committee, Program on Awards and Incentives for Services Excellence, and so many more. In addition to that, among his prestigious and notable achievements are: as an advocate of inclusive education in academia, he was awarded as the Philippine the happiest person with disability 2019 and the top 10 finalist in the search for happiest Pinovia among 800,000 entries nationwide. Appointed as a global ambassador of the 21st Digital Skills, recipient of Young Researcher Award 2021, given by the Institute of Researcher Premier Organization in India, Country Coordinator Global Education Network, Photon Loyalty Award 2019, given by the Physics Society Philippines, Merit of Leadership 2017, given by the Youth League Philippines, and lastly, a nominee in the 2021 Award for Excellent ASEAN Male PWD Educator and Advocate of Inclusive Education in Academia through Research. So, last but not the least, he's a wonderful speaker, author, teacher, researcher, professional, and above everything, a great human being. So, please help me in welcoming our guest, Professor JAYSON de la Fonte. Welcome to the Calvas platform, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, my dear friend, Dr. Haider, for that warm and very long introduction. Thank you very much. Mabuhay, greetings from the Philippines. I would like to greet our dear participants across the globe. A blessed morning, good afternoon, and good evening to one and all. I would
It's
like also
pleasure
to
to have you,
express.
Prof. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Just a soft reminder to the audience that Prof will be presenting and he would like leave time for the question answer session at the end of the session. You can ask questions by writing in comment section or you can email us at info@calvas.com. So let's get started. Over to you, dear Prof. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, I would like to greet our dear participants across the globe. A blessed evening, good afternoon, and good morning to one and all. Special thanks to the Center for Academic Learning, Writing, and Support Services, headed by their Chief Executive, Professor Dr. S. Amhad Adja, Executive Director, Professor Dr. Ashad Shah, Managing Directors, Dr. Sayed Bailawal Ali Shah, and my dearest friend, Dr. Sayed Haider Ali Shah, for the invitation to give my knowledge and expertise as to the topic analyzing data for qualitative research paper. Analyzing qualitative data is very vital as researchers spend time and money collecting it. It is an essential process because researchers don't want to find themselves in the dark even after putting in so much effort. As you can see in the slide, there is a conversation there. The way I feel is hard to quantify. And the girl said, how hard on a scale of 1 to 10? Based on the conversation, we can really appreciate what is qualitative data. And qualitative data is actually, it is about emotions. It is about experiences. It is about perceptions of people, what they feel. It helps researchers understand the language that people speak and deals effectively and efficiently in their daily lives. Now let us move on with what is qualitative research. As you can see in the word cloud, there are actually a lot of things that we can associate with qualitative research. We can say qualitative research is an observation. We can encounter context, online, interview, process, one-on-one, researchers, interviewing data, and many more. But let me share to you how I define qualitative research. Qualitative research is actually an exploration of stories lived and told by individuals on the facets of occurrences exhibited and shared through the essence of experiences. This definition was taken from my published qualitative research article in 2021 entitled Implementing Inclusive Education in the Philippines, College Teacher Experiences with Deaf Students and Issues in Educational Research. Another definition about qualitative research is that it is an in-depth understanding and interpretations of the participants' experiences relative to the explored phenomenon. This was taken from my published article in 2019. Now, we have already a background what is a qualitative research all about. And I know that you have your own definition what qualitative research is. Now let us move on with our goal for this lecture. What is qualitative data analysis? We know already that in qualitative research, we should have data at hand before we can analyze the data gathered. So how qualitative data analysis important in having a very good research paper in qualitative field? In qualitative data analysis, analysis actually happens in the context of research question. Of course, analysis is undertaken with the conceptual framework in mind, and analysis reveals the themes that are found in the data. In doing qualitative research, what we intend to have is always the findings, is always the themes, it is always the unique experiences of our participants. And it was expressed not in numbers, but in words. That is qualitative data. It works in words, not in numbers. But there are worries. There are researchers has worries about qualitative research. They might ask, have I coded my data correctly? You might ask yourselves, have I managed to capture the situation in a realistic manner to see the world through the eyes of my participants? Because in the interview, as a researcher, you must have this what we call technique on how to capture certain unique experiences shared to you by our participants. And in order for you to capture such, you are going to immerse yourselves. You are going to immerse yourselves in the data that you had been gathered during the interview. It might be in one-on-one or focus group. Okay. Have I described the context in sufficient details? You must have this what we call saturation of your data in order for you to come up with a very good analysis with your results. So good findings, good themes is actually taken from the good analysis of the data at hand gathered. It might be in the interview. Is my flexible and able to change? Yes, of course. It should be flexible. Flexible in what sense that um, there might be times that when you are doing um, the interview, though you have your what we call interview guide questions, there might be times that you need to ask follow-up questions which are not in your interview guide. So you must be flexible because there are some circumstances or instances that your participant shared certain experiences which you did not expect that they are going to share to you. So as a researcher, you need to be flexible enough to capture such and to do follow-up questions in order for you to generate good experiences shared to you by your participants. What you are going to do, or what questions that may come in our minds before we start doing the analysis. First, how you are going to organize your data. As a researcher, we are expected to be as good, or as good managers, or as excellent in organizing data, because data is very important. We cannot come up with our findings or results if we don't have data. Everything relies in the data that we gathered. So data is very important, and organizing data is much important to have a very good findings. What is your research question? Of course, it will turn back to what is our purpose, what is our goal having this study, and how we are going to answer this research question. Okay? What unit of analysis that you are going to use? Is it you are going to do the manual analysis or coding of your data? Is it you are going to use tools? And later on, we will encounter what tools that we are going to use in analyzing our data to come up with a very good qualitative research paper. What approach in coding should you take? Is it deductive? Okay. From general to specific? Is it inductive, or you are going to use the two techniques? Okay. How you're how are you going to code and find themes in your data? Is it open or eggshell? Is it related? It is it eggshell in terms of its relevance to what you are trying to explore? Is it open in terms of what is its connection, or the attached connection or relationship of such gathered data to your study? How should you analyze the data? Are you going to use tools or mechanisms such as DDoS, Atlas TI, in vivo, Max QDA miners, and web-based survey administration software, or Qualtrics? Everything are actually these DDoS, Atlas, in vivo, and all are actually softwares. It will help us to analyze our gathered data in the interview in order for us to have this what we call comfort, easy, uh, easy in terms of dealing with the data that we gathered in the interview. But there are some limitations if we are going to use this software, such as, for example, some of these are actually not free. You are going to pay in order for you to utilize its functions. Um, there are some which are free, but it requires expertise and technical technical skills in order for you to maximize or utilize its unique features. It is not really safe if you are a novice researcher, qualitative researcher, because it will makes your research journey complicated. So during my master's study, actually, I have a qualitative research study, and I do the manual coding. That's my first time to have a qualitative research paper, and I do the manual coding. And um, And I really love the manual coding because it really requires focus. You are the one who generate, or I mean, you are the one who capture the experiences, and you are the one who will discover what is your themes. But somehow, we need to explore these softwares in order for us to have easy and fast data analysis, qualitative data analysis. Okay? What strategies are you going to use? Is it you are going to meditate, you are going to retreat, you are going to have conversation with others, or you're going to do the conceptual mapping, or you are going to do the brainstorming? Everything are actually useful in terms of analyzing qualitative data because other opinions or other insights, inputs as to what you are doing sometimes can contribute to the holistic um the holistic generation of your findings. What are some strategies to ensure in making correct assertion or interpretation? Qualitative research is very actually technical in nature. It is not the same with quantitative, wherein there are a lot of statistical tools that we use in order for us to interpret the data. But in qualitative research, it's really hard. It's really hard. That is why you should have um, the technical know-how or the technical knowledge as to what you are as to how you are going to interpret the data that you have gathered, such as you are going to use member checking after the interview. You are going to share the transcribed data to your participants in order for them to verify and validate if what you had been transcribed are actually the things that they shared to you during the interview. Or you may use this technique, peer review. Okay, you can share to your colleagues. You can share to your friends who are also a researcher. Okay, this peer review is actually utilized by different journals. They do peer review in order for them to really validate that this research is actually, it has a equality, or this research is actually overstudied. Okay, so this peer review is very important. How do you honor your perspective, the perspectives of your research participants may give you a motivation as to your interpretation of the gathered data, because somehow you might be influenced that you need to give justice, to what your participants had been shared to you in the interview, because that is an intimate expression of their experiences as to the topic that you had been studied. How much time will you need for analysis? Okay, just ask yourself how many time you are going to spend for the analysis of your data. Okay, some experts can do the analysis within an hour. Okay, but some do the analysis in within 1 month. It depends, and it may vary as to what specific qualitative research you are doing. If it is phenomenology, or if it is ethnography, so it may vary, because there are some fields, there are some approach in qualitative research that requires time, in order for you to generate the good experiences or unique experiences of your participants. Okay, so iterative, you are going to do this iterative process, or you are going to review repeatedly or test repeatedly the data that you had been gathered in qualitative research. The transcribed data, I mean, to listen to the audio recorded interview of our participants repeatedly many times. Okay? And then we are going to relate the transcribed data to the audio recorded interview uh if it is the same. Okay. What we are going to do during the analysis? During the analysis, we are going to immerse ourselves to the data in order for us to discover what it tells us. In the interview, as I said earlier, there might be experiences of our participants that we did not expect. So, in order for us to discover such, we need to immerse ourselves. We need to let's some says that we need to put our our experiences as to their experiences in order for us to relate what they are trying to share to us. But there is no right way to begin this process. If you have collected all the data through interview, observation, or documents, you might begin by reading through one interview. So if you have uh, one or two participants in your study, okay, you may start immediately after gathering all the data that you need. Okay, you can start analyzing your data. As we all know that in qualitative research, we have a lot of sources as to our data, as to our qualitative data. May it be in printed, may it be in oral experiences shared to you by our participants, or may it be in pictures, photos, videos. No, there are actually a lot of sources of qualitative data that we can use in our qualitative study. You may seek understand what the participants has offered in relation to the questions posed throughout the interview. Okay, I am referring to the interview guide. You may do this for each interview separately. Okay, if you have three to or five participants, you need to analyze each, because each participant has their own unique experiences. Okay, so if you were not able to capture the experiences of individual participants, you may conduct a focus group to really validate their experiences. Okay, you may also start with observation data, instead using similar process to discover what the data you have gathered reveals to you. Okay, um, after transcribing your data, you are going to observe, to scan, to read, okay, the responses of your participants. By looking into the data that you had been gathered through your transcription, somehow you may capture what really the themes of such study, or what should be the themes, or what should be the results or the findings of that study. Okay, by simply looking into the data that you had been gathered. Or maybe you may go into triangulation. You are going to validate your findings or your themes through this technique, triangulation. Okay, you may validate it to the the printed material that are available, or you might be triangulate your data to other findings of other authors, or you may triangulate your data as to different sources, as to other persons or other participants. Okay, what are the ways in which a case study may be presented? Okay, what what technique are you going to use in order for you to uh, present your qualitative data um, in such a way that it can be understood and relatable to your readers, or to other researchers, because our findings um, are actually can provide um, additional literatures to other researchers across the globe. That is why you are cited. If your study are relatable, if your study are unique or notable, okay, you will be cited by other researchers across the globe. After the analysis, you may be wondering about the following things, such as, for example, you might be asking, what if I don't have any significant findings? And it will never happen that you don't have, after exhausting yourselves to the analysis of the data that you had been gathered, after all you don't have significant findings. It will never happen, because in qualitative research you are expecting to have experiences, individual or different experiences of your participants, individual participants, shared to you during the interview. So, of course, there is always significant findings. And later on, I will share to you my published research in my published qualitative research as to um, the significant findings that are beneficial to the existing policies in terms of education, in terms of inclusive education. Under what circumstances do you wish to revise your research question? In qualitative research, question can and sometimes should be revised until it is complete. That is why in qualitative research, we we call it as our overarching question. This overarching question is actually our guide as to what what is or what are our boundaries in exploring certain experiences or certain phenomenon. So that is our overarching question. And the research questions should match to the findings, not the other way around. Yes, because what we are trying to address is the questions that we pose, the questions that we have. So that is our purpose, to address, to answer the questions that we have. In presenting your findings, there are actually a lot of techniques. When crafting your findings, the first thing you want to think about is how you will organize your findings. Our findings or your findings represent the story that you are going to tell in response to the research questions you have answered. Thus, you will want to organize a story in a way that it makes sense to you and will make sense to your readers. I will share to you later on how I present and organize my findings in such a way that is easy to understand by an ordinary people, by professionals, by other researchers, okay? Because that is the purpose of research, to inform and to make your findings um, beneficial, or your literatures beneficial to other researchers that may are going to have the same or related studies of you. You want to think about how you will represent the findings so that they are compelling and responsive to the research question. As I said, our findings should in accordance or congruent to what is our objectives. You may discover the best way to organize the findings is first by a research question. Because of research question, we are guided actually as to how we are going to do our analysis, how we are going to do our how we are going to organize our data, and later on to generate a very good research findings. Once you have decided how you want to organize your findings, you will start by reminding your reader of the research questions. Again, we will always go back to the research question because this is very important, because this is the one that we are going to address. Why we do research? Because we are going to address certain phenomenon. Here are some points to consider. Your findings should provide sufficient evidence from your data to support conclusions you have made. evidence takes from quotations from interviews and excerpts from observations and documents. That is why later on you can see in my example that there are some quotations, excerpts from the interview in order for me to convince the reader that this is really happening, that this is really the experiences of my participants because they shared it vividly during the interview, such as like this, something like that. Ethically, you have to make sure you have confidence in your findings and account for counter evidence, which evidence contradicts your primary findings and not report something that does not have sufficient evidence to back it up. Of course, you are going to present um, what is being shared to you by your participants. We should not manipulate our data because that is unethical. What had been shared should be analyzed um, technically and should be shared to everybody. But there are some ethics that we need to be abided with in doing qualitative research. Your findings should be related to your conceptual framework. Of course, all the sections under research, your introduction, your research objectives, your conceptual framework, your theoretical framework, your data analysis, data gathering procedures, and of course, your findings are actually congruent from each other. Okay? Okay. In qualitative research, we don't have statistical tools to be used, but we have data explication process, and I will share to you a process given by Grunwald 2004. This is how he um, suggested qualitative researchers in analyzing and interpreting their qualitative data. He has actually 5 processes. First, transcription, wherein the researchers will repeatedly listen to the audio recorder interview. And then spoken words should be transcribed and then transformed into written text. The second process is delineating units of general meaning. From the interview, okay, from the responses shared by the participants, you are going to encode those verbatim, meaning word for word. In the context of countries that has different languages or spoken languages, such as in the case of Philippines, we have actually a lot of languages. We have Bisaya, Cebuano, Hiligaynon, Tagalog, or Filipino. So if we have participants having different languages, we are going to transcribe verbatim, word for word, what had been shared to us by our participants. And sometimes we quote it, we translate that the Hiligaynon version or the Cebuano version or the Filipino version in English. Because if we are going to publish our paper, um, other researchers or readers might misunderstood the language. So we need to translate. Okay. So after generating units of general meaning, out of that, you are going to have units of relevant meaning. From the responses, you are going to select what are those responses relevant and discard, delete, omit those responses which are not related to what you are trying to explore. Okay? Next, out of that relevant meaning, we are going to cluster those. Okay. From the relevant meaning, you can cluster what are those responses which can be grouped according to its purpose, according to its nature. Okay, so you are going to cluster those units of relevant meaning. Then after which, you have all the clusters. From the clusters, you can analyze it, informing your themes. So this is the beauty of Grunwald's data explication process. He has only 5 processes. Very easy. Transcription, delineating units of journal meaning, units of relevant meaning, clusters of relevant meaning, and the last one, you can generate your themes. Another uh, uh, process that I been using is actually Colaise. So he is actually a very known qualitative expert, especially in phenomenological study. So if Grunwald has 5 processes, Colaise has 7. So, but as you can see, it is almost similar to Grunwald. First, familiarization. So from the responses in the interview, you are going to familiarize uh, the experiences of your participants as to the things that they shared to you in the interview. Then identifying significant statements, formulating meanings, clustering themes, developing an exhaustive description, producing the fundamental structure, then of course you can have your uh, themes. Okay. Okay. Sometimes qualitative researches are actually being questioned by other researchers, especially researchers whom um, was not able to explore and appreciate the beauty of this field in research. In quantitative research, they have statistical tools. They have ANOVA, Person R, and many more. But in qualitative research, we don't have that. But we can validate and we can say that our findings are actually valid and reliable because of this, what we call rigors or rigors. What are these? Credibility or truth. How we are going to have this? We are going to check, recheck the, what the check, recheck the responses of our participants. So from listening, okay, then we are going to check it in our transcription if it is correct or not. Okay, and we listen it repeatedly many times in order for us to really capture the responses of our individual participants. Transferability or applicability saturate the participants experiences as to the phenomenon being studied. In the interview, in the interview there might be participants who shared a lot of things but are not related to what you are trying to explore. So as a qualitative research expert, okay, you are going uh, to do certain moves in order for you to let that participant back to what you are trying to explore. So after such, if you have already the things that you wanted to have in the interview, that's the time that you already saturate your data. Then after which, in terms of reliability in qualitative research, we have a lot of things to do and we have a lot of things or techniques to do in order for us to say that our results are reliable. Such as, for example, which I already did in my previous qualitative research paper, I do the audit trail. What is this audit trail all about? Is that all the thing? all the things that you did in terms of analyzing your data from listening to the audio recorded interview, transcription, and to analysis, to clusters, units, and so on, and to come in order for you to come up with themes, you are going to share it to your colleague, or you are going to share it to your friend who is also a qualitative researcher. What you did is also the things that he will do. That is an audit trail. Okay? An audit trail. He will audit everything that you did in your paper, and later on, if he can generate the same result, meaning your findings is reliable. But there are also a lot of reliability technique in terms of qualitative research, such as, for example, other than audit trail, we do member checking. Okay, we return the transcript of our result to our participants, and then they are the one who will confirm and validate that it is true. Okay, meaning it is reliable because they do the checking. Or the last one, we have confirmability and neutrality. You are going to present your data for verification and validation of your participants. This is to establish truthfulness and accuracy. You can use the member checking technique in order for you to have this what we call confirmation of your findings. In order for us qualitative researchers to have confidence that our findings are really valid and reliable. Now, before we end, I would like to share to you excerpts of my published qualitative research paper, and uh, for you to have an inputs or ideas how I do my presentation or how I do the analysis of the gathered data. So this is my first published qualitative research paper. This is entitled Implementing Inclusive Education in the Philippines, College Teacher Experiences with Deaf Students, which was published in 2021 in Issues in Educational Research, Scopus Kyoto Journal in Australia. So in this study, I use phenomenology by Colaisi. So this is how I do my analysis. All the things that I have here are actually responses, are actually the transcript from the interview of my participants. So in the table, you can see there theme, illustrative question, and then you can see their participants and then sub themes. In my first theme, I have here, okay, wait. I have here, I cannot see. My first finding, okay, you can see there, and you can see an illustrative questions, or that is actually responses of my participants, which earlier I discussed that in order for you to have evidence and your to support your claims or support your interpretations as to the data that you have, you are going to quote some responses vividly expressed by your participants during the interview. And then you can cite who among the participants shared such response, such as, for example, you consider P1 to P43, or actually all my participants shared this common responses. Okay. And then out of that, I have my sub themes. Okay, at the end part, you can see there. Okay, this the table actually, what I am trying to share to you in this table is that um, from the gathered data, you can organize it in such a way that it's easy to understand by you as a researcher and other researchers across the globe. Okay, so you might share some excerpts of the responses during the interview, and you should cite who whom or whom of your participants shared such responses. That's it. Actually, I have only four themes out of eight. I have four four themes. Okay, if you can see, out of this actually hundreds of qualitative data that I have been gathered in analyzing the interview, the audio recorded interview, I generate these themes or findings. Can you appreciate now the beauty of qualitative research, that even in just a picture we can present our findings? If you can see there in my slide, I summarize my qualitative data into this um, illustration. If you can see, I presented my themes in a bar, in a triangle, and that bars bears the word challenging, opportunity, creative, and innovative. And at the heart of that bars is actually inspiring. So the bars are actually illustrated in such a way that they are in a circular motion. Because I am a science teacher, so I need to relate my themes, or I mean, you are actually, you should be creative enough in presenting your qualitative results or findings in such a way that it may be associated to you who you are. So since I am a science teacher, I use magnets. Okay, these are actually magnets in a circular motion, and at the heart is actually a triangle. So this can be interpreted that the experiences of my participants in implementing inclusive education in the Philippines is actually challenging. But despite of being despite that it is challenging, it is an opportunity for them to become creative and innovative. Okay? And in general, they associate their experiences in teaching deaf students as inspiring. So that's my themes. Out of the illustration, I can describe vividly, shared, express what are the experiences of my participants. The second one, before we end, is actually an excerpt from a published article, also qualitative, entitled Driving Forces of Students' Choice in Specializing Science, a Science Education Context in the Philippines Perspectives. This was published in the Normalites, an ASEAN Citation Index. An ASEAN Citation Index, this is actually a counterpart of Scopus in the Asia Pacific region, but the journal is actually from the Philippines. In this case, so this in this case, I use Grunwald's data explication process in analyzing my data. So later on, you can see there. Okay, so can you see the difference from the data that I have? Hundreds of them, but I turned it out into simple illustration to really express what are the significant findings of this exploration on this topic, driving forces of students' choice in specializing science. So in this illustration, you can see there that the first box is actually the things that I explored in terms of the driving forces of students' choice, why they choose science as their area of specialization. And they shared in the interview on the next um, the next boxes are actually the clusters of meanings from those things or from those general and relevant meanings. I clustered it and formed into uh, six sub themes. Okay, and it was being clustered into four. Okay, what are those? As expressed by my participants, why they choose science? Because first, it is their favorite subject. Their attitudes towards science, that they really love science. Their science experiences that they do experiment, etc., etc. And then this cluster was analyzed to form theme. And this theme, these three favorite subject, attitudes towards science experiences, is being considered as the personal interests of the participants. So this is now my final theme. Out of the clusters given, I generate my final theme, personal interests. And I also shared it in my findings, samples of the responses, okay, that they love science, they like science, okay. Participants 43, 22, participants 3, and so on and so forth. Okay. I quote their responses in the interview to support and to provide evidence that the participants are actually the one who vividly express those experiences. Second one is views in science, scope, science as a subject, categorized into theme that it can be considered as the nature of science, how they perceive science, how science as a field perceived by the participants are actually in general speaks about the nature of science. Then relatives decision. Why they choose science? Because it was influenced by their relatives. And this is actually the sole or the only response. Uh, that is why I consider this as a unique response or a unique theme, because it is actually the only one, and it was only expressed or shared by only one participant. So this makes this theme unique, the family influence. Teachers' competence and teachers' teaching strategy can be categorized into a theme, teachers' impact. There are actually some of the participants who shared that um, those strict teachers has influenced them to become teachers, has influenced them to be to excel in science. Some of them are actually um, participants in Olympics or physics or chemistry Olympics, something like that. So this is somehow a theme that speaks about the teacher's impact. All in all, at the long side are actually the four themes taken from or generated from the clusters, and these clusters are taken from the units of relevant meaning. So this is how I express or present my qualitative data in forming or generating my themes to have a very good qualitative research paper. Okay, thank you very much, Sokreya to Pakistan. Thank you very much to our dear participants who listened to my talk from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much.
Wow, superb session, Prof. Jason. Really loved the way you started it. Really, what was so interesting to see through the image you have shown, how you are going to quantify my feelings. What a nice way to start your presentation. And very nicely, you have quoted your own definition of the from your own research paper. And then I love the way you connected it further, that the questions you need to ask before starting the qualitative research. And then very nicely you have mentioned the before and after analysis. What are the things you need to consider, what software you are using, and why you are using. You need to have the right understanding for it. And then the data explication, they further, again I would say very nicely you have explained your own research paper, just to show that how nicely you have presented and how great command you have on that qualitative research. It's really so great. And I was just kept on thinking, in such a difficult way you would have learned all these things, and very nicely, and I would say in a very easy way you taught to our audience that how to carry out and what are the things which needs to be considered before walking to this research journey. Because yes, indeed, qualitative research is a wonderful method. And yes, of course we can quantify it, and very nicely we have mentioned about the role of the ethics involved in it, that do not manipulate the data. Yes, it's unethical, and you can ensure the reliability of it. And yes, we do have the certain steps which we call the scientific steps, and you need to carry out these steps in order to do it appropriately. And this is what we have said in the beginning of the our this session, that we will learn the strategies, we will learn how to overcome the challenges in it. We have not said that there would not be challenges, there would be challenges, but how to tackle it, that's the beauty of the expert, that they tell you how to walk this journey, and what things you need to prepare for that purpose. Thank you very much. Fantastic job you have done. Powerful explanation, wonderful content you had. I was enjoying your slides, which were very much connected from one to another and to another. And it was just like a story you were telling from the start to end. And then you ended with your own practical example, that this is what you have done. And I really love that thing. Thank you very much, Prof. Jason. Really wonderful. If you allow me, should we start with the first question, please?
Sure, I am ready now to answer questions or
Yeah.
clarifications.
Yeah, thank you very much. The first question, Prof. Jason, they want to ask that, Prof, please guide us. How many minimum participants do I need to start my qualitative research? Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. That is actually a very good question. Speaking about qualitative research, there are actually a lot of experts in qualitative research who would like to suggest to us that one participant is actually more than enough, or two participants is more than enough, or you may have 3 to 10 or 10 to 15. And I would like to share to you that um, actually I have experience having 43 participants in my in one of my qualitative research. So in short, as a researcher, you are the one who will uh, do, I mean, um, who will identify as to how many participants you would like to have in your research study. Because in qualitative research, we have this what we call inclusion criteria. And in that inclusion criteria, you as a researcher, you are the one who set who among the participants will be qualified to your study. In short, it limits you as to the number of your participants. But in general, you as a researcher are the one who can say that one is enough, two is too much, or I need 15, 43, or 100. It's up to you for as long as you have your inclusion criteria. Inclusion criteria is the 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 actually the answer.
Um, Very nicely said, Prof. Thank you very much for such a elaborative answer for that. Prof, we have another very interesting question, and that is they want to know your opinion. That Prof, please share your thoughts and how many questions are needed for qualitative research. Is there any rule of thumb or common trend? Yes, please.
Okay, that is actually another a very good question. In qualitative research, there is no such rule that governs that we need to have one research question, we need to have five research question, or we need to have 15 research question. What is the rule in a research question is that even one question is actually enough for you to answer the things that you would like to explore. And that is what we call overarching question. From that overarching question, you may, you might or you may, as you go along with your research study, you may add some research questions that you did not expect, but you ask it during the interview. In short, there is no rule in having as to how many research questions that you have. But perhaps if you are going to publish your paper, research journals would suggest that you must have your general objective or research question, then you must have your specific objective. But there are also journals who would like who will ask you one research question, and that one research question is actually enough. So there is no such rule as to how many research questions you would have in your qualitative research paper.
Oh, very nicely said once again, Prof. Thank you very much. And I'm enjoying the way you are giving the answer, really very scientific way. Prof, one question, and I really I'm enjoying this question. It's really very interesting. They want to ask your personal opinion that, Prof, if you are given a chance to carry out any research, particularly the qualitative or quantitative, which research you would like to carry out, the qualitative or quantitative? That is the first part of the question. And second part of the question, they would like to ask that if you go for the mixed method of research, which should you follow first, the qualitative method, then the quantitative, or first the quantitative method and then qualitative method? What will be your preference first in a first place, and second, which will be the sequence? Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. That is actually a very interesting question. If you may ask what I preferred, actually my definitely my answer is qualitative research. I love qualitative research. I really appreciate qualitative research, and I advocate qualitative research. Okay? Why? Because there are actually a lot of experts in quantitative research, but there are only few who engage and appreciate the beauty of qualitative research. And you might be one among those who will fall in love with qualitative research. I did not suggest mixed method. Why? Because we have this I have this conviction that if quantitative research is hard and qualitative is hard, if we mix the two, it would be very, very hard. But perhaps if you do mixed method, you should and you must consider that things that you do uh, in your quantitative aspect, the same should be given or the same attention should be given to your qualitative research because as I experienced, there are actually a lot of researchers who will do the mixed method, but then they just simply focus on the the other aspect of that mixed method. They simply focus on quantitative, but they forgot to dig deeper in their qualitative or vice versa. They do the analysis in their qualitative, but they forgot to give their focus or attention to the quantitative aspect of their mixed method. In short, you can have only one, or if you may to do mixed method, I suggest that you should give full attention in details of the things that you have in your quanti and the things that you have in your quali. But I would like to recommend and I would like to share to you that qualitative research is very interesting and very engaging. And I'm sure that if you put yourself to explore this field of research, you will surely fall in love in qualitative research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Very nicely you have mentioned. And I think that's the reason why you have such a great command on this qualitative research, because you have a passion for that research, qualitative research. I would say that's the, I think your competitive advantage as well, because you really like and you are a very scientific person. So really to quantify the feeling is very difficult and tough job, but still you love it. That's the wonderful. Prof, we have the last question, and again, it's quite nice question. They want to ask that, Prof, what is your biggest tip for the person who are beginner in the qualitative research? What is your best tips for us? Yes, please.
Okay. The tip that I'm going to share to those novice or beginners in doing qualitative research is that um, you need to try exploring qualitative research. You need to invest time in exploring what is qualitative research, and later on you will discover that you love that you will fall in love with qualitative research. I mean, if that burning desire of yours makes if that burning desire of yours may will become your your motivation, surely um you can do and even later on publish qualitative research. So just try to explore, just try to navigate qualitative research, and later on you will fall in love with qualitative research. That is my tip to you. Explore and embrace qualitative research.
Yes, very nicely said, Prof. Thank you very much. I loved your answer. Explore it. The more you will get into it, the more you will learn it. And this is how we have learned the different research methodologies and proper research way. Very nicely said, Prof. I would say that it was a wonderful session with you, a powerful explanation, and I would say the wonderful content you have shared with our audience. And I hope they would have learned a lot, and it will be a very enlightenment session for them to watch it again and again, because your each and every slide was so powerful that you have included each and everything, even right from the beginning of this journey, what you need to consider, and then how you are going to end this journey. Again, you have done it so very nicely. You have covered the whole session. So at the end of the session, we asked our each guest that what is your message to the world as a speaker, author, teacher, researcher, trainer, learner, professional, and educator. Yes, please.
Okay, my message to my fellow researchers, academicians, educators all over the world is that we need to share the knowledge that we have, because through sharing, we can translate that knowledge into a bigger perspective, which are beneficial to other researchers and, of course, to humanity. Research is actually very important in in our planet, because everything are actually governed by research. So we need to share our knowledge in order for this knowledge to become um, a catalyst for change. Thank you very much and a wonderful night
Yeah.
sharing my
Thank
insights and knowledge and expertise to the topic.
Very nice, Prof. Thank you very much. Such a great session it was with you. And really, at the end, I would say that indeed, in analyzing the data for qualitative research paper, Prof. Has explained in a wonderful way and take advantage of the all the information shared today. It was so great. We strongly recommend to do follow the distinguished guest speaker through his research work, and you can email him for future learning and guidance. He is very generous and always ready to help the people. Moreover, powerful explanation and wonderful content which the Prof has already elaborated will help you to learn and develop your understanding regarding the qualitative research. So take advantage of all the information and important tips and suggestions shared by an expert. That is all we have time for today. Thank you once again, Prof. Jason, for your time and energy. And I would like to thank our audience who joined us. If you have any additional question about information shared today, please email us or connect to the speaker directly through his email address or through social media account. Thank you all for your support and liking our sessions. Stay tuned as many sessions are on the way. Please do not miss any session